Hello, everyone. I'm here to, kind of preview this game between Minnesota and the Saints. Now, Minnesota. No, my bad. Saints. Always go over the opponent first here. The Saints are sixth in total offense at 409.8 yards a game, sixth in passing yards, 301.5 yards a game. They're tied second in sacks allowed, only having 9, 16th in rushing yards, 108.3. But they are tied for 24th in yards per carry at 3.9. They are 11th in third down conversion percentage at 42%, and they are second in the league only to the Rams, I believe, in points a game, which is 34. So they score 34 points a game. That's quite a few points. And defensively, they are 17th in total defense, allowing 366 yards a game. 28th in passing yards allowed, 293.7. They are tied for 27th in sacks, with only 13 of them. First in rushing yards allowed at 72.3, and also first in yards per carry allowed at 3.1. They are 24th in third down conversions at 42%, 27th in points per game allowed at 27.2. And their injury report, it's very simple. Mitchell Lowen, defensive end, has a neck injury. He's out. He's mostly just a depth player. That's it. That's their only injury on the injury report as of today. So, Minnesota, 13th in total offense, 380.4 yards a game, 8th in passing yards, 293, tied for 20th in sacks allowed with 19, 27th in rushing yards, 87.4. They're tied for 21st in yards per carry allowed. Wait, no, not in yards per carry, 4.0. And they are 22nd in third down conversions at 38%. And they're 14th in points a game with 25.3. Now, defensively, they are 11th in total defense, 345.9 yards a game. 16th in passing yards allowed, 256.1. And they're tied for 4th in sacks with 21. They're 5th in the league in rushing yards allowed at 89.7, and they're 4th in yards per carry allowed at 3.7. They're 1st in third down defense at 23%, and they are 14th in the league in terms of points per game allowed, and that's 23.6. Now, injury report-wise, Dalvin Cook, hamstring, out. Tom Compton, the guard, has a knee, he's out. Anthony Barr, hamstring, out. Sendejo, groin, out. He's going to miss his third game. And Riley Reef with a foot, he's doubtful, so I doubt he goes, and doubtful, but probably looking at Rashad Hill and O'Neal on the tackle ends. And then Joseph, who missed last week, is questionable with an ankle/knee, and Rhodes is questionable with the ankle-foot injury as well. And in comparison to New Orleans' lone one dude, it's quite the list. Now, offensively, I think it's very critical to try to get them to be, honest on defense, to kind of, just be balanced on offense pretty much. Because you do have to worry about Jordan on the other side, and Jordan will wreck a game. We're missing a tackle. We know Rashad Hill's not the best tackle in the world. O'Neal still has to improve. Keep them balanced. You need to find a way to run the ball, even though I know they boast the league's #1 rush defense. But they really do struggle to defend the pass, which was evident in their stats. And that is kind of like Minnesota's specialty this year, throwing to Diggs and Thielen. And I think even with the banged up offensive line, you can use that to open up the run game in what could potentially be skewed by the fact that they allow so many passing yards, and just it's easier to move the ball on them through the air to maybe teams don't run on them that much. But where that logic kind of is flawed is the fact that they're also #1 in yards per carry allowed at 3.1. So if you can get them to open up, though, then you're good to go. And the other thing with Tom Compton, you have to worry about Isadora coming in. I'm not too worried about it just because I think Isadora exceeds at the things that are kind of what we saw from this team last year, even though Easton wasn't the best player. But what he was good at was he was a good athlete on the move. You could do screens with him, you can pull him, you can do things like that. Compton's more of a bigger guy, he's more of a power dude. He doesn't fit as well. So even though he might be more consistent than Danny Isidora, Danny Isidora brings a lot of the same value that Nick Easton brought. And if you add in Brian O'Neill into the mix and Pat Elflein, then you start to see maybe this screen game comes back a little bit. And you can kind of use that with it, do more pulls, use more zone kind of things. Like, I don't think the run game will actually falter. There's a chance the run game can actually get better with Danny Isidora in the game just because of his mobility. And I think I'm willing to see how that shakes out first before I declare that as a problem. So, yeah. But the ball should be moving at least a little bit on this defense, so as long as they're allowing 27.2 points a game. I don't see how they're going to really stop the Diggs-Thielen combo. I know they have Marshawn Lattimore, but after him, it's not much there. And I think even then, you could say he's having a sophomore slump a little bit just because of how that defense looks right now. Note, I am not as in tune to the Saints as I am to Minnesota. So any Saint people watching this, I apologize if he's actually playing well and just the rest of the team. But defensively, they have to get to Drew Brees. They can't just let him sit back there and deal in the pocket. That would be bad. That would be very bad. I think you need to hit him often and early. Then you have to force them to run the ball, which I know might sound weird because they have that duo in Kamara and Mark Ingram. But I think we have to force them to play to our strengths, which, where is our depth? It's along the defensive line. Even though Linval Joseph, he's hurt. He's questionable. He was questionable last week. Didn't play. If he doesn't play this week, we still have depth behind him. As opposed to, like, let's go out to Rhodes. If Rhodes doesn't play, or if the same usual thing happens where, you know, we see him play and then at some point he gets hurt, and if he doesn't come back from that, we're talking about Holton Hill. And make him play to our strengths, which involves a big game from Holton Hill, hopefully Rhodes not getting hurt, Alexander, and Waynes as well. And then you're talking about the back end with Iloka, Anthony Harrison, Harrison Smith. You need all of them to kind of have bigger games, or else this could go out not very well. I think you need to try to force him to run, be one-dimensional that way. And I am worried about these injuries, though, because the other one is Eric Wilson. He will be coming in for Anthony Barr. We haven't seen Eric Wilson, so, well, not in an actual game. We've seen him in preseason. He's played well in preseason, but this is a totally different beast when you're talking about Kamara, Mark Ingram, Drew Brees, Sean Payton. It's a totally different thing as opposed to playing Jacksonville in week 3 of the preseason. So, and speaking of that, if we can't get the defensive backfield, that secondary, to play well, like if they don't get the big game, the other side of it is you need the pass rush to be there on the defensive line without blitzing, because with all the injuries, I'm not sure how much you can really blitz a veteran quarterback like Drew Brees and an offensive mind like Sean Payton on the sideline. So that's why it's helpful to get Griffin back now, because even if he's in a limited kind of pitch count role, we'll still see Griff pop up on the pressures. So we need that to also step up a little bit. I kind of trust that to come up more than the secondary right now. And this game could be a struggle defensively a little bit because of the injuries. And my prediction overall in this game is New Orleans wins 35-31. And it's just because I think Minnesota should move the ball on them. But I really think defensively the injuries could potentially just be too much, because I don't know if Rhodes plays in the game, I don't really trust him to finish the game. Because I know they have him marked down with a foot, but it's a sprained ankle, and he's been limping all week. He hasn't really practiced at all this week, and I don't trust him to finish the game if he does play. So you're talking about Holton Hill against Drew Brees, undrafted free agent rookie, or Drew Brees and all of his guys. gonna lean towards Drew Brees there. So, and like I said with Eric Wilson, that's another thing where we've seen him flash before, just never in a regular season game. I at least need to see it in a game where it counts against teams that are scheming. And it doesn't help that his first extended look game action is against, Sean Payton, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, all those guys, because that's a tough ask. So I think overall they'll be close still. I'm just not thinking they pull out at the end just because of all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I would like to know what you guys think down in the comments below. And until next time, I bid you all adieu.